morning, students, and welcome to the second instructional video of the section, the United States of America. In this section, we will be studying the history of the United States east of the Mississippi River. I hope that you have watched the first video, the physical features of the United States east of the Mississippi River, and answered the quiz that followed. Now, I want you to take a close look at this picture. This very colorful and unique picture is called a quilt. And we are going to give an example that the history of the United States, it's like a quilt. How come? The United States history is made up of smaller parts, as any other history. But these parts are people and their culture, interacting with places and environment over time, different people, different cultures, different environment, and throughout time periods, these have created a very unique mixture of the people. And it's like a woven threads of a quilt. We are simplifying the history of the United States with this metaphor. Now, history of USA is important because learning about a nation's past helps us understand and appreciate the diversity and complexity of this nation. In this video, we will be learning 5 main things. Number 1, who are the Native Americans? Where did they come from? Number 2, the European colonization of America. Number 3, how did the new settlers change the United States? Number 4, how did USA gain its independence from Britain or from the British? And number 5, what happened to the native people of America after the European colonization? Now, first let's start by who were the first inhabitants of North America? Who are these people? Now, we say that the first inhabitants of North America were Native Americans who arrived to North America through a frozen bridge. As you can see in this picture, at the bridge, we call it Bringia. And these people, they have passed 19,000 years ago. Now, the original people who passed to the Americas were from Asia, and they have passed using the passage as Siberia, between Siberia, now in Russia, and Alaska, the United States. This part was frozen. The water that you see was frozen in the past. So the people used this land bridge that we call Bringia in order to pass from Asia to America. This is how the first Americans or the Native Americans arrived. Now we say there were 4 famous indigenous American tribes east of the Mississippi River. And they are the Miami, and yes, Miami is named after them, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Iroquois. And the Iroquois were one of the first people to create something that we will be later introduced to, which called the Iroquois League, which was the first, maybe one of the first or the first leagues or federations to be acted in history. But indigenous, for indigenous tribes, Muhammad, what is the meaning of the word indigenous? Now, I want you to pause this video and try to answer. What is the meaning of the word indigenous? So the answer is in 3, 2, 1, and I hope that you have guessed it correct. A word indigenous means originating or occurring naturally in a place. A native person. Some people define them as people who were inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of a colonist. Well, later on we will be introduced to the term a colonist or colony, so do not be stressed out. And in the picture below there are some examples of indigenous people, some examples of indigenous people, like for example the Maori in New Zealand, and the First Nation and the Mets in Canada, and so on. Now, but Mr. Muhammad, you have said that there are 4 tribes, 4 famous tribes. Why there were more than one tribe? supposedly as the people have passed from the land bridge Brinje, there should have been one tribe only because there are one people who have passed. So aren't these people similar in characteristics and living conditions? Why didn't they form a country by the term that we understand now? Because there are people sharing same characteristics, history, and so on. Now, we answer to this question, we say yes, they have shared similar characteristics, but they did not live in the same place. And due to the differences in their environmental conditions, they grow very diverse from one another. How so? For example, in the northern areas, the Native Americans built their houses with wood and tree barks. Why? Because in the north, the weather was cold, unlike the south, as we're going to take now. It was called the wigwams, as you can see in the picture below, and hunted animals for food and for fur, to keep them warm by their flesh and by wearing the fur of the animals. Now, in the areas that were close to the Atlantic, the Native Americans used rock and stone to build their houses and depended on fishing for the food, as the ocean was their biggest resource and the biggest supply of their food and living. But if we move to the hot southern areas, we will find that the Native Americans built their houses with grasses and vines to have open-air shelters and depended on farming and fishing from the rivers for their food. Now, as we move on, we have learned so much about the indigenous people of America. Let's learn more about the European forces that came and took their land. Who do you think was the first Europeans to force the settlers or to make a settlement in America? Pause this video and try to answer the question again. Who do you think were the first European force to settle in the United States or any part of the United States of America? Pause this video and try to answer. Now, the answer is going to be in 3, 2, 1. And if you said, or if your answer was the Spanish, you are absolutely correct. Well done. The Spanish were the first people to settle in the current, as we know, the United States of America. And they arrived to North America, the continent, around the 1500s and started building settlements in the southern regions, such as St. Augustine. And we have said before, St. represents the word saint. So St. Augustine in Florida, and they built their settlements to serve both as a military base for their expansion later on and for religious centers, religious purposes, to spread Christianity in the region. Now, if the Spanish were the first settlers to the lands of the United States, what about the English? Okay, I'm going to answer you, but can you answer this question first? What is the official language of the United States of America? Now, I want you to pause this video and try to answer what is the official language of the United States of America. The answer is in 3, 2, 1. And if you answered English, well, congratulations. Your answer is wrong. How come English, it's not the language, it's not the official language of the United States of America? Now, the United States of America does not have an official language at a federal level, but most commonly used language is English. The federal government allows Americans to speak any language that they desire without them having an official language. So, the English settlers, the people, the Brits, the British started settling North America during the 1600s. Let's say 100 years after the Spanish did. But be careful. The English settlers were very strong and they started sending their colonists to the areas around New England, as we have studied in the video of physical geography of the United States. I believe that you can easily now spot where is New England on a map. New England to claim land and found more on or make more settlements. And they started many settlements such as Jamestown in Virginia and Plymouth in MA. But what is the meaning of the word colonist? I told you we'll be back to that. Now, I would be very disappointed if you did not answer. Do you know why? Because we said it earlier in the physical features of the United States east of the Mississippi River. Now again, colonists are people sent to live in new place to claim the land for their original country. So, in 1650, the number of European settlers in North America was about 52,000 people. Only 52,000 people, be careful. But it started to grow dramatically until it reached 1.7 million settlers by 1760. Now, life was not that easy for the people. Life was actually hard, as you can see from this picture, because the first colonists, the food that they brought with them from England soon ran out, and many people got sick or died out of starvation. Now, however, after a while, they learned how to plant crops and hunt for food. Soon, they could adapt to their new environment. Now, the colonies that were built by the English, logically, were controlled by English rulers. And these English rulers had connections to the British Crown. But be careful. Now, as we are seeing in this picture, a new country, is the United States of America. A country that most people in it, they speak English. But why did the English settlers revolt on their own country rulers? They are Brits, they are from Britain. Why did they revolt on their fellow British people and created the core, the first 13 states of what's now called the United States of America? See, before the 1700s, the British settlers in North America used to pay taxes for England. It was fair and not a very much high of a tax for protection and trade. And it had very good reason. But in 1707, England and Scotland united into a new country named Great Britain and charged the settlers of North America with more taxes. And there was one tax that it's very famous in history. It's called the Tea Act or the Tea Party. And this was the spark that started the American Revolution, as we will learn on. But funny fact is, if a merchant wanted to buy tea from India, so basically the ship will go from India and land on the docks of Britain. But if an American merchant wanted to buy tea from India, the ship will go from India and land in the British docks first to be taxed, and then moves from the British docks to the American docks and to be taxed again. This increased the burden on the ordinary American people. But hey, this is a quick question. Do you know what is the difference between England, Britain, and the UK? It's a little bit confusing, but I want you to pause this video and try to answer this question. Now, the answer is going to be in 3, 2, 1, and as you can see in the map, I want you to differentiate very carefully. England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, all of these are independent countries. They are country. 4 countries. Now, also we have the Republic of Ireland. That's a separate country. That is still in the European nation, by the way. But Britain is the island. That includes Wales, England, and Scotland. While the United Kingdom is the kingdom that contains the 4 countries that we have mentioned before: Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Now, back to the point. When Great Britain charged the settlers of North America with more taxes, the settlers refused to pay more taxes to Britain. They thought to themselves, okay, we are British, but we are not being taxed like British. We are being taxed like Indians or Egyptians. This is no offense. I'm an Egyptian and I do have all the care of respect to India. But if you look back at history, the people of these countries were being treated as a second-class citizens. So the American people, originally British, felt that they were treated as a second-class citizens. So they refused to pay. And they declared their independence from British rule in 1776. This started the Revolutionary War between Britain and the settlers of North America. Now, in 1781, the settlers won the war and became independent from the British rule. They called themselves Americans, of course, because they wanted to relate themselves to the continent of America. But Americans, they were representatives of the main 13 colonies that refused the British rule, and they fought against the Britain. They gathered themselves and declared that all of the states will be joined in a new country called the United States of America. And as you can see in this past flag, or as you can see in this old flag, the flag had 13 stars only, unlike the current flag of the United States, which contains 50 stars. Now, after the independence from Britain, and with more and more Europeans arriving to North America and settling there, most of the cities became crowded. The Americans looked at the undiscovered land of the west of the Appalachian Mountains to travel to and establish new places, of course, because the places that they already live in were crowded. But the Americans didn't wish to cross the Mississippi River. Be careful. All of this we are speaking about the United States history east of the Mississippi River. But there were three main reasons why the Americans did not want to cross the Mississippi River. Can you guess what are these reasons? Pause the video and try to answer. The answer is in 3, 2, 1, and the reasons are the river is wide. The Mississippi River at some parts, it's wide and has strong current most of the year, which makes attempts to cross it with horses or carriage very risky and dangerous. The lands west of the Mississippi River were wild lands, unknown for the Americans, except for being dangerous as well. The young American government that was formed in 1781 after the independence, it's still young and has not enough experience of ruling. And these people had no authority on the West Territories west of the Mississippi River, which made the area full of outlaws and dangerous people. Now, how did the American settlers, or how did the Americans settle on the Mississippi River? The United States government issued an ordinance of 1785. This ordinance allowed people to buy lands between the Ohio River and the Mississippi for $1 per acre. Be careful. Before, they used to be dealing and trading with English pound. Now, after the Declaration of Independence, many people did not know, and how could they get new money from England that they have cut ties with and they declared independence from? So they have created the new currency, the United States dollar. And in one of the ways, in order to give legitimacy for the new currency, the United States encouraged the people for buying an acre of land just for $1. This gives somewhat value to the dollar. And this caused a lot of Americans to settle in this area, the area west of the Mississippi River, and farm it using the fertile soil from the rivers that were present there. Now, Americans have been farming the land for centuries, and most of the crops and fruits are being cultivated in the region west of the Mississippi River because we say we have good soil and frequent rain, made the region one of the best in the world for the process of agriculture. But until recently, planting and cultivating crops was a hard work, mainly done by hand. But the introduction of machinery, along with manufacturing, completely changed the equation, altered the equation. More people started coming to the United States in hopes for finding better living conditions. But the migration does not always have a happy ending. Now, let me tell you a story. It's a sad one, and its name is The Trail of Tears. In 1830, gold was discovered in the southeastern parts, which made many Americans look for quick riches and to travel and to settle in the states of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, North and South Carolina. Those who couldn't find gold started cotton farms. Now, the original inhabitants of the region were members of the Cherokee tribe. They were forced by the US government to leave their original lands and emigrate to the Indian territory of Oklahoma. The Cherokee were forced to walk 1,000 miles, not by horses, not by trains, not by boats, walking 1,000 miles on foot. And when they arrived, they found that the new lands that the United States government have given them are dry and hard to farm, unlike their original lands. What did this cause? This caused a lot of them to die in the journey or starved to death upon and after arrival. As you can see in the cries and tears of this woman. Now, this was just one of many horrific and forced migration that was done against the Native Americans, stealing their land and destroying their lives by the government of the United States. Also, there were other people suffering, not only the indigenous people, the people who were brought to work for free in the newly made cotton fields. Can you guess who were they? Pause this video and try to answer. Now the answer is in 3, 2, 1, and if you have guessed it right, yes, the African American slaves, people who were brought from Africa in very hard conditions to work for free. But after the end of the Civil War, as we will discuss it later on in videos, slavery became illegal in the United States, which made the southern states very angry because, remember, they made cotton fields, they had free labor, and the free labor gave them more money. Now, this made the southern states very angry, and they made local laws to make the lives of African Americans very hard. So the African Americans started moving to the north or to the northern states, to New England and Midwest, to escape these hard conditions. Now, we have reached the end of this video. I hope that you have enjoyed, and I hope that you do not forget to answer the quiz below. Be ready for the next video, the modern life of the United States of America, how people are living now, some amazing surprises and some amazing stories to be told. Thank you, and see you later.